All right, bang, bang. Today is Tuesday, February 2nd. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Chief, how we doing? Happy Groundhog Day, buddy.
Groundhog Day. The entire country is just buried in fucking snow. So even if that gopher wanted to get out, he probably couldn't. He'd probably be stuck underneath the snow. I heard he got canceled because of COVID. So he's just chilling in his den regardless.
Wait, Puxatawny Phil got canceled for COVID?
No Groundhog Day ceremonies this year for Puxatawny Phil.
Well, no ceremonies, but you got to at least send one camera guy out there to see what
I don't think they are. I think Clem had a blog about it saying, hey,
that's fucked up.
yeah, this guy, this groundhog, he's been doing it every year for 100 years. He's not going to see a shadow, or maybe he will, or we're just fucked. So it's going to be winter because he can't see the shadow.
Right foot here, 2021, and we're not starting off good with no Puxatawny Phil.
I mean, that's like the ultimate Groundhog Day. What's canceled? Yeah. Fucking everything, even the groundhog. Yeah.
That's horse shit.
I agree. It's a sad way to start off the year.
Sorry, I know we got other stuff to get to, but before we do, I got something big for you, Chief. You ready for this?
Let's hear it.
Valentine's Day, it's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Roman's up in the ante.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
So there's added pressure to perform on Valentine's Day. Maybe.
Fuck yeah, there is.
Yes. Oh yeah. You could relax, Chief.
Okay.
Because if you're dealing with ED, or you're more concerned about lasting longer in bed, they got you covered. For a limited time, Roman has special offers to make sure you're ready for Valentine's Day because they're giving you $35 off, up to $35 off, I should say, your first month of ED treatment if prescribed. And if you purchase swipes, you'll get a free bottle of lube added to your order while supplies last.
I mean, that's a recipe for getting down on Valentine's Day. And,
that's a deal.
People like no one wants to talk about ED, this and that. The bottles of wine start flowing on Valentine's Day. You might need a little help. We'll just say that. So everybody's been in that position before. This will kick you into gear. You can drink all you want, have a good time with your girl, and then bring her back for a nice nightcap special evening.
Yep. Once again, for a limited time, get up to $35 off your first month of ED treatment if prescribed. And if you purchase swipes, you'll get a free bottle of lube added to your order while supplies last. Complete your online visit by February 10th for guaranteed delivery by Valentine's Day. All you have to do, and you're crazy if you don't do this, GetRoman.com/dogwalk to get started. That's GetRoman.com/dogwalk. Go get your Roman. That's a great deal.
Huge deal. Got to do it.
All right. So if you've seen the graphic coming in, I post it every Sunday night on my Twitter at Eddie Barstool. There's chaos in Russia, and that's what we're getting into today and tomorrow.
Like we've never seen. I feel like there's chaos all over the world in the last, 18 months or so, or however long this has been going on. But, Russia is known as a place that just clamps down on that shit. And this is probably the most vigorous and widely held, widely spread protests across Russia, maybe in the history of their country, like since the Russian Revolution in 1917. So Putin, there's people starting to think that maybe his grip on power in Russia is starting to slip a little bit because of these things. So
really,
yeah. So and it all stems back to one guy. His chief political rival at this point is this guy Alexei Navalny. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. There's going to be a lot of Russian names in this episode today, so I'll do my best. I got a little bit of that hockey background, so if I wish his name was Fedorov or Bure, I would have it nailed. But Alexei Navalny is the guy, and he's this 44-year-old guy, and he's been a political figure since like 2009 in Russia is when he kind of started to rise to prominence. And guess how he started, Ed?
How?
Like our own fearless leader, David Portnoy, started as a fucking blogger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he started as a blogger and a YouTube guy way back in 2009, trying to shine a light on some of the corruption going on with the Russian government and Putin himself, and a lot of cronyism, like everybody, kind of smoke-filled rooms, like, yeah, you can drill here for this oil, but you're going to have to give me a slice, and kickbacks and this and that. And he kept trying to go after these people. And his strategy to get in is he would buy a minority share, and then they would have to have because it's a publicly traded stock, and he would buy a small share that would allow him to go to these shareholder meetings and ask questions. And so he would like have hidden cameras and recordings and ask all these like, hey, like, where's this money going? Where's that money going? And then he would post them on the internet. And he started gaining more and more traction to the point that he actually got elected to office. So he was elected and served as a government official, and even ran against Putin for president one time. And so he's been doing this kind of crusade for about a decade now. Like, he's been kind of the number one thorn in Putin's side for a full decade. And it's really coming to a head right now because Navalny, in August of 2020, guy minding his own business, or not really, he's, being a pain in the ass to Putin, which is not a guy you want to be a pain in the ass to. There was an assassination attempt on him, and they did it by somehow placing a nerve agent in his underwear. Okay, so this toxic nerve agent starts going, and he has like this reaction where he's medically evacuated out of Russia, because you take him to a hospital in St. Petersburg or Moscow or anywhere like that, you're probably going to end up dead. So they airlift him, his people, whoever was with him, got him to Berlin, and then eventually to the UK. He was in the hospital after this incident for a fucking month. Like, that's how long it took him to recover. And then he started speaking out against the Russian government, from there. And he's vowed publicly, like, hey, like I'm doing this. I'm going. He's organized protests before, and then this one, now he's in the UK. He decides, like, he's fully recovered. And on January 17th of 2021, so just a few weeks ago, he's like, all right, I'm coming back to Russia. I'm coming back. Like, I'm healthy now. I'm coming back. And he lands in Russia, he gets off the plane, and is promptly thrown in jail. And that is what has set off all of these nationwide protests across Russia. I think I said this earlier, they have 11 time zones. You think of how big fucking Russia is, all the way from Japan, all the way to Finland. That's 11 time zones, thousands and thousands of miles, big country, cities all over the place. There are tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people protesting all over Russia against Putin out in the streets. They're having snowball fights with police. They're throwing rocks with violence with the police. The police are beating the shit out of people. The police, as of the recording of this podcast, the highest number of arrests I saw was over 5,000 people across the country, mostly in Moscow and St. Petersburg, but people getting arrested everywhere and just thrown in jail. And it's all because they're like, hey, like, this is fucking bullshit. And Navalny, after he got arrested, he like had one of those things where, like, hey, if I get arrested, release this video. And he released this video about this palace, among other things, but this palace that Putin has on the Black Sea. Guess how much it's cost, this palace?
You just said 11 time zones.
Yeah.
And that was a number that made me jump out of my chair almost.
Okay.
So comparatively, if we're talking numbers wise, there's no figure that you could say that will surprise me.
It surprised me because I've never heard of a piece of real estate cost this much. It was $1 billion, $1 billion house. Like, how do you even do that? How do you have a house?
That's like a net worth.
Yeah, right. You'd be like, your house is one of the richest people in the world, but it's a house. And it's not even like his main house. Okay. It's like a vacation resort type place on the Black Sea, which is in like the southern part of Russia. They got a lot of oil down there, but it's a little bit warmer climate than what you traditionally think of when you think of Russia. And yeah, so he has it's like, hey, Putin's like, yeah, it's not my house. He's like, oh, it belongs to this other guy. That's what he said today. Putin will not even say Navalny's name, like, because every time he has like any type of media, anything, and they're like, what's going on? And Biden and Angela Merkel from Germany, the Prime Minister of Germany, leaders from the EU, leaders from the United Kingdom, everyone's like pressuring him to release him. And he's like, I don't really know what you're talking about. And he like won't even say the guy's name publicly. That's how much Putin hates this fucking guy. He's making his life.
So now, is this guy a good guy, or is he the lesser of two evils in people's eyes?
I think it's hard to know. He is, because he's never really held a position of power. So it's hard to really judge him. He doesn't have, like, he has been arrested twice. Once in 2013, once in 2014, but they were both for like like embezzlement, but they were like trumped up charges. Like they were a bunch of bullshit, and everybody, like the UN, all these other people, are like, these are politically motivated arrests, because over there, if you arrest somebody and convict them, then they can't run for office. So they were like, this guy's causing us all sorts of problems. Let's just arrest him and he'll go away. Well, he didn't go away. He just kept fighting the fight, even though he had been arrested. And so that's kind of like, I don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy or not. It might be a lesser of two evils, but the more you dig into Putin, he's pretty fucking evil guy. Like that's kind of, it's like almost anybody would be the lesser of the evils when compared to Putin. And the reason I say that, and this is why people think that Navalny, that nerve agent in his, what do you call him? The grundles, his nerve agent in his grundles. Yeah. They think that the reason he thinks that it was an assassination attempt is because Putin just tries to assassinate people all the time. Like he has a long record of this.
What's that one we did a couple of months ago about the Ukraine president? I think it was.
Yeah, and okay, so that is like a foreign. Like, that guy was running for president in Ukraine in 2006. Like his name is escaping me right now, but he had some kind of similar type thing, like a nerve agent, like a chemical thing, where he had this like handsome kind of like, mid-40s looking guy, like very distinguished looking guy. His fucking face like melted off from this nerve agent assassination attempt on him. And then that was just like one in the long line of things. And that guy was a foreign entity, and that was never like, they couldn't prove it necessarily. I guess they haven't proven any of these. But there's like, you could probably have a list of like 10 prominent people that Putin has had assassinated, and that doesn't even count the people that have been thrown in jail and no one's seen them. Like there's a ton of journalists, TV personalities, businessmen, anybody who really speaks out against the state have been thrown in jail. And so he has, like, this is like I said,
allegedly assassinated.
Allegedly, okay, but it's like some of the circumstances. There's this guy, Boris Nemtsov, who was the former deputy prime minister of Russia. So when the Soviet Empire and the Soviet Union collapsed in like 1989, they had this breakup, and then they had like this, so they lost a lot of their territory to these, like Ukraine became its own thing, and Kazakhstan became its own thing, and Latvia, all those kind of countries like kind of broke off. And then Russia was kind of like reforming as their own new country. And they had this guy, Boris Yeltsin, who was the first president of Russia. And then he had 3 deputy prime ministers. And this guy, Boris Nemtsov, was one, and Putin was another one of them. Okay, so this guy, Nemtsov, he actually supported Putin's run for president initially in, I think, 1999 to take over for Boris Yeltsin. And then he started being like, well, this guy's kind of fucked up. So in 2011, he started like holding rallies speaking out against Putin and Putin's corruption. And like, it was kind of linked to this, you could say it maybe started with Navalny's post. And then this guy who's, was seen as like a rising star, like this guy that Russia was like hopeful about, who had kind of been pushed aside by Putin. He started like, openly campaigning against Putin, this and that, and then was holding rallies. And then in 2015, he was like, hey, we're going to have a rally to stop Putin from like doing what he's doing in Ukraine. Like that's fucking wrong. He was walking outside the Kremlin, which is like basically their Capitol building, the equivalent of their Capitol building in Moscow, shot in the back 4 times, just dead. Never caught anybody. Putin said, hey, don't worry, I'm going to do this investigation myself. Okay, that was Putin's answer. Like, oh, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Yeah, guess what? Never found anybody. It was just like the guy who speaks out against Putin. Putin's like, I'm on it. And then no one never found any murders. Like that's widely held position, speculation, that it was Putin's basically, it's not the KGB anymore. I think it's called the FSB, which is essentially like a spy network, kind of like the FBI or CIA or secret police equivalent over in Russia, that they killed him. There is another guy named Boris Berezovsky, who is like a media tycoon. Okay, he's like this big shot. Like he got somehow he got control of the first ever like big, like the ABC. It's called like Channel 1, I believe. It's like the ABC of Russia. And his net worth was valued by Forbes in 1997 as like $3 billion US. Another guy who was like in tight with Boris Yeltsin started speaking out against Putin. He ran away like he called it a self-exile from Russia, and he went to United Kingdom, like London, for safety. But he was like still from there very outspoken. Like, I'm gonna take Putin down. Like, I'm gonna, like, he was just kept talking about Putin, like, this guy's the worst. He's corrupt. He's rolling back civil liberties. Like, there's no freedom of speech. Putin has historically been very anti-gay rights, very anti all sorts of like minority groups, and this guy was speaking out against him. What do you know? He was found dead in a locked bathroom in the United Kingdom with a noose around his neck. And like the original media reports were that it was a suicide. And it's like, this guy's a billionaire living pretty well in the United Kingdom. And he's going to, like, no one had any suspicions that he was depressed or anything like that. And then it was like, basically they staged it. And even almost like an Epstein thing, where like, yeah, he totally fucking killed himself. And but the coroner in London was like, we aren't able to rule that this was a suicide based upon like his autopsy. So there's like implications of foul play from the British government that some, like, these agents came in and killed this guy and tried to make it look like he killed himself. Wow. So that was in 2015. And then, there's a long list of like journalists. There's this guy named Stanislav Markelov. Okay. And he was a human rights lawyer, shot, killed. Same thing, like right outside the Kremlin. Then he was with a woman who was a journalist who was like reporting on him, and she tried to help him while he was shot. They shot and killed her too. Then there was another lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky. He was a lawyer investigating these billionaire, like Putin guy, oil tycoons for tax fraud. He was arrested, beaten within an inch of his life, and then he died in police custody. And they're like, oh, well, we don't really know what happened. So be on your merry way with that. And then there was another woman who was investigating abductions and murders in Chechnya, which Chechnya is an area of Russia that has had a lot of Islamic terrorism, like some pretty horrible things. But there's like a lot of like, well, you're just abducting people and murdering them like without cause or without any, civil rights or anything like that. She was kidnapped outside her home, executed, and then they dumped her body in the woods. And these are all people that are like the other foreign intelligence agencies were like, the only way that these people would be allowed to be killed in this manner would be as if Putin personally signed off on it. So like he has a long history of eliminating anyone who speaks out against him or that he deems a threat. So that's why it kind of gives credence to this Navalny saying like, yeah, like they tried to poison me with a nerve agent in my grundles, my underwear. So,
but this is the first time. Like, there had to be other attempts on this guy, right?
On Navalny,
he's been going at him for a decade.
Yeah. So, but they've tried, like, this feels like an escalation, sort of. So Navalny, like, he started off with this YouTube thing. He's, being, threatened and things like that. He's in hiding, but he's still doing his thing, still putting things on the internet, still trying to, like, expose Putin. And the other thing about that, the reason why it was different historically with not only Navalny, but all these people that are speaking out against him, why there weren't these, like, widespread protests and like anti-Putin movements, is because Russia, the first 10 years under Putin, he was fucking killing it for Russia. He doubled the size of the economy. The standard of living in the 90s in Russia, like, have you ever seen the movie Air Force One with Harrison Ford?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one line in that movie where it's like the main terrorist guy is like, you've turned my country from a proud nation into one that's run by gangsters and prostitutes. And that was true. Like in the 90s, like they're going through this thing. It was like very corrupt. They had a ton of crime. It was just like people are just trying to live. It was like a bad place to be. It was like a third world country. And so Putin, when he gets into power from like 1999 to 2010, economy's fucking booming. People are just like, yeah, like he's taking away some of our freedom of speech, but we got money, so who fucking cares? Like it's all about the economy. And and then things started to turn. So when we have White Sox Dave on radio saying like, hey, fucking oil is trading at negative values. Well, how come they're not paying me to fill up my tank? That was like the White Sox Dave line. Well, now imagine that on a nationwide scale, because most of Russia's economic might comes from the energy sector. It comes from oil and natural gas. So if the price of oil and natural gas collapses, and that's going to have a big time impact on the economy for the everyday person. And it really impacted Russia a lot.
Needless to say, let's just hop into part 2. But before we do, Chief, I got to talk about that deal one more time.
Let's hear it.
The big deal, Roman.
It's the Valentine's Day special. It's the winter special. There's that movie Mystery Alaska, and the guy has a great line about, the reason I play hockey is because it's like I do two things, and I'm doing both to stay warm. I play hockey and I fuck, and that's what we do up here in Alaska. That's what you need to do. That's how you get through the winter. You play hockey and you fuck, and you better be doing it with Roman swipes, Roman the ED medicine, and what else they got for us, Ed?
It's the Valentine's Day package for your package. How about that?
Ooh, baby.
You like that?
I
Valentine's
do like
Day's
that.
Coming up. A lot of people, obviously, a lot of pressure to perform. Roman can help you relax, everybody. They got you covered. Because whether if you're dealing with ED or you're more concerned about lasting longer in bed, they got you covered. For a limited time, Roman has special offers to make sure you're ready for Valentine's Day. Get up to 35%. Got to learn how to read here. Get up to $35 off your first month of ED treatment if prescribed. And if you purchase the swipes, you'll get a free bottle of lube added to your order while supplies last. Like I said, one more time, for a limited time, get up to $35 off your first month of ED treatment if prescribed. And if you purchase swipes, you'll get a free bottle of lube added to your order while supplies last. Complete your online visit by February 10th for guaranteed delivery by Valentine's Day. To get your hands on it, all you got to do is go to getroman.com/dogwalk to get started. That's getroman.com/dogwalk. Pick it up. It's a big package for your package. Like I said, I'm happy I came up with that. It's going to be my slogan for the rest of the week. But yeah, go get some Roman. And Chief, needless to say, let's just hop into part 2, right?
Yep, there we go. Whoosh. So now you have all these people who are living kind of by their standards, like high on the hog from 2000 to 2010, when the price of oil like really plummets. Starting in like 2014, 15, 16, like in that time frame, because we were producing so much oil here with fracking, and there's better technology, that the price of oil abroad and solar is becoming more of a thing, and renewables, especially in Europe, the market for oil and natural gas wasn't what it was that first 10 years under Putin. So now people are like, well, hey, I was willing to look the other way before when I'm having steak dinner every night. Now people are going hungry. We don't have jobs, and people are, I guess, same like everywhere else in Russia. They're furious about what COVID has done to their lives and their livelihoods and the economy. So now Putin, who could always fall back on, I'm making Russia, an economic power, and restoring like that sense of pride. It was almost like a make Russia great again type of thing. Like Russia's coming back, and Putin's the guy to make him come back. And he brings the Olympics in, he gets the World Cup in, and it's like, hey, like Russia's this, we're on the up and up. And then he's just got everybody who disagrees with him under his thumb or worse. And that's kind of the state of things. So now where it's like, hey, things are really bad across the country, and we're finding out that he's got a $1 billion house on the Black Sea. And then meanwhile, Putin, you want to know what he actually claims he makes while he's living in this $1 billion house?
Oh, man.
Okay.
Please tell me it's at least more than $1 million.
Oh, no. Okay. So he says he officially on the records, he only has 2 apartments. One of them's only 800 square feet, which is about what mine is. Okay. So it's an 800 square foot apartment. And then he's got another one that's like 16, maybe double the size, but not like some ridiculous place. I think it's one in Moscow, one in St. Petersburg. He says he makes $135,000 a year between his salary and his military pension, because he started off in the military, then he was in the KGB from like 1975 until like 1992 when the KGB dissolved, and then he became like another. But he's always been in the government. It's not like he was ever like this guy who was an entrepreneur like that media tycoon that we talked about earlier. It was he's just been a servant of the people working for the government. And then it's like, oh, well, then why do you have a watch that's valued at $135,000? This Patek Philippe watch. Why do you have all these $6,000 suits? Like no one can afford. He doesn't answer any of those questions. And then he says he's got about $250,000 in savings. So that's all Putin has. Okay. Meanwhile, he's got this $1 billion place, right? Okay, this $1 billion palace on the Black Sea. I did a blog I posted on Monday that because this Alexei Navalny was like talked about that palace, so then people were showing up at this palace and protesting. So Putin has this other little hunting lodge when he wants to get away from the world and get back to nature out in Siberia, like the Ural Mountains. Costs $87 million. So he's got $1 billion house, and then another house he spends a couple weeks a year is worth $87 million. So what did he do? So people couldn't show up there and protest in Russia. There's this Russian version of Google called like Yandex or something like that. He just was like, hey, gets on the phone, hey, take my house off of there. So all the satellite images, everything that has like this $87 million house in the mountains in Siberia, gone. Just like he just erased it from the map so people wouldn't be able to find it in Russia.
But I think you posted a picture of it, right?
Yeah, because we're in America.
Oh, so we could see it.
Yeah, like we can still see it, but they have like restricted internet access and things like that where their they're Google. So like they have their own version of Google. When you go on that Yandex and you're like trying to do Yandex maps the way that we do Google Maps and you're scrolling over where Putin's house should be. And it's just like, well, it was there 2 weeks ago. Now it's just not there. Putin just made it.
Place looks awesome.
Looks sick. Yeah. $87 million goes a long way. So, I mean,
it looks very nice.
Looks very nice. He also, this was a stat I found that I actually even have a hard time believing this, but maybe I shouldn't, that there's a report that he owns 58 different private jets, like that are, that he either has access to or in his name, which seems like overkill to me. One of which is confirmed to have a golden toilet valued at $60,000. So that's about half of what he makes in a year. You're spending that on a golden toilet. I don't know about that.
What's up with the golden toilets?
It's got to be fucking awesome to be like, I'm pissing on gold. If you're that rich, okay, if you're that rich, wouldn't you want to take a shit on gold and then just flush it away?
I guess.
I mean,
sure.
I could understand. It's not something like I would ever spend money on, but I could understand the appeal of that. And then he's got a yacht that's reportedly worth $1.2 billion that he cruises around on. And then it's like, well, what is his actual net worth? Okay. There's speculation and theory that he's actually the richest person in the world. Okay.
Wow.
That he's worth more money than Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. So there are people that say that Vladimir Putin, the government servant who's making a modest $130,000 a year, is worth over $200 billion. $200 billion. So Elon Musk is now worth $185 billion, and he just passed Jeff Bezos, who's now, they say he's currently worth about $184 billion. Putin could lose $15 billion and still be right there with those guys.
I mean, I didn't know it was that much, but at the same time, him saying he only makes 135, like that is the definition of pissing on people and telling them it's rain.
It's preposterous. And then
that's the definition.
And that's what this guy Alexei Navalny is like getting at, because it's like, okay, like they have these like kind of nationalized, like semi-nationalized companies for the oil and gas industry. So they have like, you can buy shares and stuff, but they're kind of owned by the state. But they're also kind of private. So if you have like these oil fields or these gas fields, well, you can gain access to those and you can drill and you can pump, shit out of there and sell it, into Europe or whatever, and other homes in Russia. You can do that. There's one company in particular called Gazprom. Gazprom reports that they make $112 billion in revenue every year. Putin is said to have a 4.5% equity stake in that company. So if you have a company that's making so if he's getting a dividend from them, and you better believe that's one that it got leaked somehow, and there's a ton of companies like that. So if there's like a diamond mine, I think I may have done a blog about this, but it's like the world's deepest hole in the world. Like planes fly over and they get sucked in somehow, like through the gravity. But it's crazy. And but like, so he gets a piece of that, and then it's like, oh, you got a media company, I get a piece of that. You got a packaging company, I get a piece of that. So he just has money coming in off the books. And we should do a dog walk on this thing too. It's there was this document dump called the Panama Papers, and that came out a while ago. But it kind of just like
I'm kind of familiar with that. That shit was crazy.
It's crazy, and it released like a lot of these people that had connections to these offshore bank accounts. Well, it's been proven through the Panama Papers. And proven, like, maybe not in the court of law, but there's like documents showing Putin's links to these offshore accounts. Well, the ones that they found are worth $2 billion. So are you worth $200K in savings and $130 a year in whatever, or are you worth fucking $2 billion that you have in the Cayman Islands? Like, which, what is it? And so he's worth like just a shit ton of money. And then you find out, going, even further, that palace in particular, and I think this is why people are mad. It's like, okay, Putin gets all his oligarch friends that are already giving him kickbacks, right? They're already giving him a little piece of this, a little taste of that. Here's your watch. Here's, your 2%, whatever. They donate. He's like, he goes around to them and has them donate millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to build a network of hospitals across Russia. So, hey, that's actually pretty good. All right. Well, then you find out that they get to all the building supplies at like a ridiculously discounted price. And where does the balance go? On some of these, on the wood, on the pipes, on the copper, all the construction materials, all this and that, computer screens, whatever. Because Putin's like giving them like, hey, this is for a public works. This is a public good. You better sell it to them at a good price. Goes on the books as one price. The balance goes into the construction for his $1 billion house on the Black Sea. So it's like he's like the most corrupt fucking guy in the world, and that's how he ends up worth $200 billion.
Some what do they call that? Creative accounting, I believe it's called. Right?
Or cronyism, or just out and out corruption. Like that is like by definition. Oh, you want access to this field? You better give me a piece of it. You want access to that? You better give me a piece of it. And if
my salary is only $1, well, it's like, yeah, but your bonus is 15 million.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And if you don't give me that bonus of 15 million, guess what? You're thrown in the fucking gulags. And I watched this this guy. Who it was a video made by Vice. It's like a little 8-minute video talking about these protests, and he's a guy he also has his own YouTube thing now, and he has like this apartment, and he's got a VPN, so they can't really track his whereabouts that well, and he's kind of organizing some of these protests, and he got caught doing the same thing, I want to say in 2017 or 18, and he got arrested, and he was sentenced to a year in military construction work in Siberia. That is a fucking gulag. That's what they used to do, under Stalin and Khrushchev and these people that were in like the height of the Cold War. It's like, oh, like you're speaking out against the state? Well, you know what the punishment for that is? You're going to like the coldest, most miserable place in the world, and you're going to do hard labor for a while. We're going to say you're in the military. We're going to pay you a little something, but you don't have the choice of going or not. You're going. And that's what happened to him last time. So like it's like dire consequences for doing any type of organizing or speaking out against the Russian state while Putin's in charge.
It's the adult Russian version of holes.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's exactly what it is. You're just digging holes, and it's just it's crazy, and it's like that economic now, like because people are so unhappy with the current state of affairs in Russia, that's what's given real momentum and power to these people. And this is the first time where Putin's actually kind of felt a little bit threatened by the people on the ground.
Man, and it's really breaking out over there, huh? Because we're talking something I've hard time like visualizing. You know what I mean? Because it feels like he's been doing it for so long. Where like, I don't know, for some reason I was always under the assumption that like people just kind of accepted it, And
I think they did, and I think they were willing to look the other way And now they clearly are not, because they're like, arresting this guy Navalny after you had a failed assassination attempt, basically just for speaking the truth, is fucking wrong. And we got people starving in Russia, and you have $1 billion house. That's wrong. And you have all these. You had all these people donate money to build these hospitals, and then we're way understaffed. And we don't have the facilities because you took the money out of that fund and put it towards your $1 billion house. That's fucking wrong. So you have all these people, and it's January. It's Russia, okay? It's fucking cold. So you have people in, sub-freezing, sub-zero temperatures out there fighting the police, risking their lives in like the worst conditions possible because they've just had enough. And that's what it seems to look like. And I've said there's been over 5,000 arrests of protesters, and they're talking maybe 100,000 or more people actively protesting in the streets across the entire country. It's insane. And Putin, they're saying maybe kind of sort of saw this coming, because a couple months ago, I think I might have blogged this too. I'm kind of oddly obsessed with Putin is what I'm realizing, because he's been like the minister of propaganda. He's riding shirtless horseback. He's doing jujitsu. He's riding race cars.
He's got all that. Like he's got all like the outer shell of like that.
He's a bad man majama. Don't fuck with him. He's wrestling tigers and shit.
He's Rocky IV, bro. He's Rocky IV.
Perfectly said. That's exactly what he is. And but he enacted a law and got it passed through his people, saying that if any former president can't be prosecuted or after they leave. So if you basically have like get out of jail free card forever. So there's speculation that he's getting a little bit sick, so that he might have to leave office, and then if he left office, that he would be immediately like prosecuted. So he put something in there, be like, sorry, I was the prime minister and the president. So that was the other thing. So Russia used to have term limits. So he did his 10 years, and then this other guy came over, and he's like, it was like, hey, we're going to have this new guy. He's going to be the president. He's going to be the prime minister. I'm just going to be the president. I'm just here in an advisory role. And that guy served while Putin was working behind the scenes to get rid of term limits. So they get rid of term limits, and Putin comes back and he's like, yeah, I'm the head guy in charge again. And actually, I was just running shit the entire time. And so that guy's name was Medvedev, the like other prime minister. So in Russia's history, they've only had 3 prime ministers. They had Boris Yeltsin, who's dead. They had Putin's number 2 guy, who we basically gifted that position as the other prime minister, Medvedev, and then him. So, like, who's that law protecting, Putin? It's really just you. So you're the only guy who can benefit from that law that you just enacted, that no one can be prosecuted after you leave office. So, like, he's crossing his T's and dotting his I's, and he's playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. He's also kind of just like smashing the board. It's not even really chess and checkers. He just takes the table and tosses it over if he doesn't like the way it's going.
Man, he figured out the system. He invented. He made himself the system.
Yeah,
he is the system.
And it's one of those things where it's like, America could always be better. It's like, and I understand like why people get so upset about things all the time, but our status quo of like how we live is pretty fucking good compared to like other places in the world. Like I would choose America 1,000,000 times out of 1,000,000 instead of living in Russia, and it's because of things like this. At least you have a little bit of a fighting chance, it seems like, in America, where that is not the case. You want to speak up, you might get deplatformed or something necessarily, or I don't know what could happen to you, but you're not being thrown in jail just for saying words the way you can be in Russia without any real trials or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the never mind. I was going to say, I think the whole Robin Hood crew would argue that when it's getting pretty bad.
I mean, and I agree with them. Like, I agree. Like, that was pretty fucking bad too. But like all those people on Twitter, like Portnoy would be thrown in jail. Portnoy would be. You want to talk about Portnoy? It's like, hey, I want all these people. I want jail. jail. Like he had that great rant. I want this guy in jail. I want that guy in jail. The only person, if that was happening in Russia, the only person who would end up in jail would be Dave Portnoy. So it is like, at least you can say that those people behind the curtain who are pulling the strings and fucking everybody over, that you can shine a light on them and try to get them into jail. Where over there, you just have no, you better shut the fuck up. You're going to end up in a Siberian prison camp.
Yeah. Well, damn. All right. It was titled Chaos in Russia. This is more, man, the money aspect is just unbelievable.
$200 billion.
Unreal.
That's the estimation of how much that guy's
and
worth.
$1 billion
house,
sea mansion,
$1 billion yacht, a quaint little countryside hunting lodge, 87 million. It's insane.
Wow. And this ain't the end of it. Like, like when he does go out of power eventually, whether because he's sick or he dies or whatever, there's going to be a lot of more shit then too, I'm sure.
I mean, it might just devolve into chaos because it'll be a power struggle. Someone's going to want that seat. Someone's going to want the pipeline to $200 million. So it'll be a big fight. So you might have people, being like, let's just try to start from scratch. You might have people who are close to Putin trying to maintain power, and who knows? So it could get better, it could get worse. It is kind of interesting that you see some Russian professional hockey players, Artemi Panarin, like probably the most vocal, speaking out against Putin, like hardcore. Panarin fucking hates Putin. And that's, he's a public figure making a lot of money. That's a dangerous thing to say too, and he doesn't give a fuck. So credit to Panarin for speaking up too. Love that guy.
Yeah, because I don't know, I'm sure you know a lot better than I do. I don't know the difference between Russia and Turkey, like when it comes to all this shit. Mm-hmm. And I know that Turkey wanted Enes Kanter back in jail. They wanted to send him back.
I'm sure Putin would love to throw Panarin in jail. I'm sure he would fucking love that. And then release him to play in the Olympics and then throw him back in. That's, so
I'm sure, but shit actually, there might have been shit that happened with Cantor that actually made it seem this actually might happen. I don't know.
Yeah, that was definitely a real thing. He was kind of fearful for his life at some point because he was speaking out against their dictator, and so again, that's a thing. You can, when Donald Trump's the president, you can say how much you disagree with him or how much you hate him or you think he's this, you think he's that, and you can do that publicly and freely without risk of being thrown in jail, and that's pretty good. So Cantor, you say that, you might have a legitimate hit out on your life, and who knows with Panarin too, that could be a thing that he worries about at night. Yeah.
All right, Chief, thanks, man.
Of course.
Obviously, because I'm convinced, I know that's kind of how it works too. Just watching some shit, they got boots on the ground. I'm not saying that this fucking little dog walk is anything, but I'm convinced some Russian is listening to all programming. You know what I mean?
For sure. We'll see what the numbers are in this one. If the numbers are down, then we know that they're fucking with us. So, although I wrote that, I might have a hit out on me because it's the third Putin related thing I've done in the last month. So,
yeah, I don't know what's alleged. I don't know whatever, but I always throw that out there because it makes me feel better, and I don't want to get sued. So
here comes Red Ed running in to defend Putin. What a surprise! Didn't really do it. He don't really know. It's just alleged.
All right, fuck off. All right, Chief. Thanks, man. That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll see you then.